Welcome to Living from the Inside Out with Holly Wade. Living from the Inside Out is about living fully, guided from your inside. Holly shares the wisdom of how your mind, body, and spirit are truly connected and that you deep down know your own answers. Holly and her guests will provide tips, practices, and inspirational stories to help you approach your life from your own heart. And here's Holly.
Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Living from the Inside Out. I am your host, Holly Wade. And today I have one of my favorite people on this planet, Miss Karen King. So let me tell you a little bit about Miss Karen. You've heard me talk about groove or body groove, and this is how we met. I was working at James Madison University, and we hosted a training. And Karen and I had emailed and messaged back and forth because she was really interested in coming to this training, and we made it happen. And there's just something with groovers that as you fall into the magic of groove, you'll find this out. But there is like this family, the sisterhood, and you know a groover, someone who grooves their life when you meet them. And Karen is one. And we've just had these really rich conversations and time together. And it's kind of like having this, when we reconnect, our conversations get to pick right back up. Just one of those kinds of people in my life. So Miss Karen, let's let you introduce yourself to our audience today. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and yeah, we'll just start with that.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, Holly, for having me on your show. It's an absolute honor. And as you said, you know, groove is what brought us together. You started something really powerful in my life, and you have helped to keep the momentum going with that. So I appreciate everything you've brought into my life, including this interview and the opportunity to be here. So just a little bit about me. I have been on this really amazing, wacky journey, as we all have. Mm-hmm. And I was a stay-at-home mom for 12 years, and groove found me at a time when I needed it most. I was in an unhealthy marriage. I knew that it needed to end, even though I didn't really want it to end. I knew it needed to. And with 2 kids involved, it was very complicated, very difficult. But it started with groove, and some of the things that gave me the strength and the courage to do what I had to do for myself, as difficult as that was. And from there, having been a stay-at-home mom, that was, you know, I hadn't been working out in the world other than the volunteer work I was doing in my community, working with youth. And so I found myself having to figure out, okay, how am I going to make a living, and, you know, and still not lose sight of my calling in life, which was, again, around youth and empowering women and girls. During the time I was a stay-at-home mom, I discovered an article on human trafficking. It was focused on sex trafficking in America, and it really stunned me. I couldn't function for a few days just at what I learned was happening right under our noses in every community in America with our kids. These girls and boys are being targeted at ages 11, 12, 13 for prostitution, which if you're a minor, it's not prostitution, it's automatically sex trafficking. So the more I learned, there was no way I was not going to get involved at that point, because I was already about empowering youth. And it just I wanted to work with survivors, but I didn't know how that was going to happen. And one valuable lesson that I learned from all of that was I did everything I could possibly do. Whatever I called all these organizations, whatever they needed, there wasn't really a place for me to just walk into helping and mentoring survivors. And frankly, I think the universe knew that I needed to learn a few things. I mean, we can all be passionate, but we need to know what the heck we're getting into.
Yeah.
And so I went on this interesting journey there with learning everything I could from every aspect about sex trafficking, not just about what the survivors go through, what keeps them there, what makes them so vulnerable in the first place, what happens after they're rescued or after they get themselves out, and the struggle that they have in relationships because of their sexual trauma, all these things. But I also learned on the end of law enforcement, the laws themselves, how they can further criminalize victims, all these different things. Just putting myself out there and speaking engagements, spreading awareness, being challenged by people who don't want to believe what's happening, or maybe don't even want it to stop because they have their own
because there's a lot of cards that have to tumble.
Yes.
That bottom up, there are some powerhouses that are going to tumble.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of fear around exposure.
Absolutely. There's so much. If someone is already involved in this in any kind of way, there's a lot at stake, certain investments, whatever you want to call it. But there are people out there, and you don't always know when you're talking to them, when you're talking to someone who may not want this stuff to stop. You just don't know who you're talking to and what their experiences are, what they're holding. But anyway, over time, I was organizing some fundraising events and all these different things, working with different organizations. And the funny thing that I learned was that if you really feel compelled to do something, just start moving. And that's what I did. And again,
because that is powerful.
Said, if you feel compelled to do something, and we all know when we're feeling compelled, we might try to shove it down because we go, wait, what was that? That doesn't make sense. Or I don't have it in me to do that, whatever it is. Just start moving. It doesn't mean you have to have it all figured out. I could have said, when I started making calls, I could have said, well, hey, nobody's looking for anybody, or they want psychiatrists. I'm just a stay-at-home mom. There's no place for me to work with survivors. So I tried, but hey, it's not working out. So I'll just wish everybody well and go on to the next thing. But what I did was kept moving and kept getting involved in whatever way I could. And it taught me a lot, things I needed to know before I had earned the privilege of working with survivors. So it happened as it turned out, I was organizing an event for families, and we kind of kept it very discreet, the information we were giving to parents in these little envelopes, but we made it about celebrating families. It was called the Safe Child Fair. And there was a pastor from a group home nearby that brought some of these kids they were breakdancing and doing all this stuff as part of the entertainment for this organization, or for this event. And the pastor came up to me and he was looking at the information and he said, we have girls right up the road who we've been accepting who are going through this very thing. They've been rescued out of sex trafficking, and we don't know what we're dealing with. We need mentors for them. Would you want to do that? And it was like, ding, ding, ding. There's 3 years in the making that I've been working towards that. And here it is. Now the opportunity has come. But it didn't just come because I made some calls and it's what I wanted to do, So I had to go through the school of life to get there. And I've been doing that ever since. I took a little break from it through my divorce because my own kids needed me, and I needed to be there for them and not drop the ball on some of these girls that I wanted to work with. So I took a break from it, but I'm now back involved mentoring girls, mostly survivors. Some are at-risk youth, which really they're all at risk. Through all of that in my divorce, I had always been all about giving these girls that I was mentoring self-care. like mind, body, spiritual self-care. If we can get to that, if we can learn to take care of ourselves without shaming ourselves for it or feeling tremendous guilt, especially as women,
Yes.
then that's the beginning of a brilliant love affair with yourself.
Yes.
Because a lot of these girls have been told, and even just society in and of itself, you don't even have to be a victim of trauma. Young men and young women are being told you're not enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, not to like themselves and the self-care that they might do really comes to, it's driven by being not enough. But if you can do something kind for yourself, like taking care of your body, not just because you want it to look good and you want to whip it into shape so it looks like the cover of that magazine, but because your body deserves it and you want health and you care. Even if you don't feel that feeling of self-love, you keep doing those acts of kindness for yourself, and that feeling will start to follow. So I felt like those were things in my life growing up, having my own sexual trauma. I didn't know I was doing it, but I had poetry and I had dancing and I later as a teenager started lifting weights, and all those things gave me a place to release the rage and the fear and the sadness, and even feelings of helplessness gave me a sense of power and a voice where I didn't feel like I had any of that. And I didn't know it at the time, but how much that was going to contribute to my emotional and physical health as I grew into an adult. Because I continued to do the self-care and personal development and spiritual development. And those things saved my life.
Yeah.
I don't think, given the things that I had to overcome, I don't think that if I were still here today as a 49-year-old woman, I would not be enjoying the emotional and physical and spiritual health that I'm enjoying today had it not been for my accidentally doing those things for myself.
And you just gave yourself the opportunity to rewire your brain and your body, or that mind-body connection by making those choices.
Yes.
Rather than wallowing in the victimhood or the rage or the anger and letting that continue to feed itself, you said, you know what? I like this outlet and I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And as we do that, that's what changes that chemistry. It's what changes the physics in our body. That's what gets down to that cellular level, and where you create a new default.
Yes.
A new, because that pain, this is kind of what I've come to. That pain is always going to be there underlying. What do you do with it?
Yeah.
That's the question. Do you feed it, or do you go, okay, I see you. I acknowledge you. Let's go dance.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's really what it comes down to. And I think that when we go into this healing, like, ooh, I need to be healed, we think, oh, that pain somehow is magically going to disappear. And you and I have talked through some of this too, because we both had these journeys of trying to become whole and to just fully accept all aspects of ourselves, the good, bad, ugly, with the indifferent, every little piece of ourselves. Because if you deny any one little piece, you're slapping God in the face.
Right.
You're denying you. If you deny one little piece of you. And so those things that have happened, we can't erase that.
No, we can't. We're all wounded healers in some form.
We are.
Yeah.
But healing doesn't just erase the wound.
Right. And the wounds are what help make us better healers.
Absolutely. Well, they make us better humans, I think.
That's it. I mean, it's not like we don't have to wear it as a badge of honor or something, but it gives there are gifts that come out of it, for sure.
Yeah. It's what gives us compassion for someone else, because you can see their pain. You can see past the mask that they're wearing and say, I see you.
Yeah.
You're safe with me.
Yes. And
how important and powerful is that? That's where healing takes place.
Absolutely. And many people don't feel safe, even in their own minds.
Yeah.
With another human being. So if another human being can come along and be that transparent and say, look, I've got wounds and they still hurt. But, as you said, when they come up and they affect me, I embrace them. I acknowledge them. I thank them for whatever they came back to teach me, and I let them go.
Yep.
And that is powerful. And you're basically just helping other people learn how to do those same things for themselves. We all have emotions that we would prefer not to feel. And that is where the whole professional human came about.
So tell us about that. Tell our audience what the professional human is, and then dive into the story.
Okay. Well, it's funny because I do so many different things as an entrepreneur since I started my business. I do eating psychology coaching. I do, the movement, the groove, which is just such a delicious thing. I teach some fitness classes. I teach pound, some drumming stuff. And I'm currently in an intensive program to offer sexuality, love, and relationship coaching, which I'm totally stoked about. But I've done, desire map workshops, a variety of different things. So I was talking with a mentor friend of mine who she was hiring me at her center for doing some workshops over there, and we were making business cards, and she said, I don't know what to call you as far as your title. I said, yeah, you and me both, because I still am struggling with, at the time I was really struggling with, how do I brand myself? What do I really do? And I tell, what's my little elevator speech, all that stuff.
I hear you, sister.
Yeah. And
because when you're multi-passionate and have such a breadth of experience, it's really hard to summarize that.
Yes, absolutely. And
yep. Amen.
I've always said, I'll tell people, well, I'm not an expert in anything. Don't look at me to be an expert at anything. But one thing I do know how to do is be a human being on planet Earth. Mm-hmm. Because I've learned how, as we were talking about, to embrace as one friend of mine put it, he said, the human emotions are like a color wheel of the human experience. So we have some colors we like better than others. And so we would prefer to just have those colors and leave the other colors out. Or like the salad bar human experience. I'll take that. I don't want sadness. I don't want
right.
But we're going to feel them no matter how much we resist them.
It's part of the human experience.
Yes.
Those things are hardwired in us for a reason, and they don't have to be feared. They don't have to be resisted. I suppressed. Preaching to the choir here, I was an emotional stuffer.
And those things are the things that make us sick or shut us down. And we don't. So I've always said, when we can embrace those things that we don't like so much, the sadness and all that stuff, then if we don't embrace them, we don't get to stand in the full glory of all the stuff that we supposedly love. Mm-hmm. If we are shutting down to the negative stuff, we're also shutting down to the positive stuff.
Yep.
And so we won't get to enjoy them all. I want to enjoy it all to the fullest. Yeah. Because as far as I know, I'm only going to be in this body at this time on this planet one time for however many years I'm supposed to be.
80-ish years.
I want to get the most out of this sucker as I possibly can.
Yep.
So, and
as women, we punished it for too long.
Oh, yes. Yes. And made ourselves small.
Yeah. Yeah.
We want to pretend like everything's fine, and we put our masks on and we try to make everyone think we have our shit together. And at the end of the day, when we do that, we're not fooling anybody. Most people tend to not feel as safe around us. But if you can show up and be transparent, you not only get free, but you help set other people free. And so when my friend and I were talking about, well, what do you do? She said, what can we put as a title? And she said, how about professional human? And I was like, boom, let's do it. I said, let's just put that on the card. And I'm just curious to see what kind of responses happen. And immediately I was giving my card out and people were like, professional human, that's awesome. And I was like, well, there it is. It clicked. And not that I needed anyone's permission for that, but I was afraid that people at first were going to see it and think, oh, it's about being, in like, they were just going to have this picture of someone corporate, like professional human, like, oh, she's like a professional in the corporate world. And I thought, once you look at me, you're going to know I'm not a corporate. It's going to be really easy to tell that that's really not where this is going. And it gives people an opportunity, if it's confusing, to say, well, what is that? Like, what is that? What does that mean? And it gives me a moment to say a few things or a sentence or two about what it is to show up as a human being on planet Earth fully.
Yeah.
Really, that's what that's all about. And it just kind of stuck when my mentor kind of gave me that title. And I went, yeah, let's roll with it. And we've been rolling with it ever since.
Yeah. And you've got a blog that people can follow. We'll have those links in the notes and all of that now too. Because Karen is a beautiful, beautiful writer, and you just need that opportunity to connect with the words. She has a gifting for being able to just make words like can hit you in places that a lot of other people can't weave them together in that way. So I encourage you to, as an audience, to go look her work up. So let's talk a little bit about your past year, because the show is Living from the Inside Out, and you do that. And I know we both have been, for me, it's been the last 17 years of diving in and going deeper and really understanding and knowing myself. And for you, it's been years as well. This isn't something that you just, you can't just take a pill and figure out you. You can't just take a supplement and figure out you. You have to really spend time and be deliberate and intentional on shedding layers, on feeling pain, on letting things rise up. And that's really frightening. That's why so few people are willing to show up for themselves and do that work for themselves. And yet, I know I'm going to speak for myself, and you can say for yourself. For myself, it's been worth it. To be on this side, to feel that freedom, to just be fully able to say, this is me, and to not rely on reading more self-help books. And not that I don't enjoy them, but like no one else has the formula for my life.
Absolutely. Well said.
So I might as well just go live it and experience it and be enriched and let nature and other people teach me and just dance that dance of life.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, all these years of diving in and getting to those wounds, getting to those, not just expressing them, but really just going, okay, this is me. This is me. To be on this side of it now, how does that feel for you?
Oh my gosh, it's one of the most liberating things to just let go and acknowledge some of my fears. Lots of fear in my life. And I can still tell you, fear is just a natural part of being a human being. It's always going to be there. We don't conquer fear. We invite it to sit when it shows up. We invite it to sit down and have a conversation with it, and then we dismiss it. But we want to listen to it, because sometimes fear is there to give us some protection that we need. But incredibly liberating, because I'm afraid of like almost everything. I'm just turn around and I'm like, oh, that's scary. That's scary too, and that's scary too. So I'm learning how to deal with fear. And last year was big for me on that.
Tell us about that. That's exactly where I was going to segue, because I know in this last year, you lived so boldly and did a lot of things that other people would go, I don't have the money. I'm doing what? And these excuses that we all do to say, I can't do that. And yet you didn't. You kind of gave yourself a year of yes.
Yes.
So tell us about this.
Okay, well, it started about this time last year. I'm connected with something called mindvalley.com, and it's basically personal development, all these online courses you can take. Fantastic. So there was a course by Christy Marie Sheldon. I love her work. I've taken a course or two of hers before, and it was about manifesting, you back, and I had plenty of those. I'd really been struggling with I've found I was learning a lot of places where I was getting in my own way a lot because of my own old psychological patterns, patterns that were still happening from my abuse as a kid, and all these different things. So anyway, I thought, I'm doing this and I'm going to really pour myself into it because I am so done struggling and knowing that it's all because I'm just getting in my own way, and I haven't really seen that as much as I'm seeing it now. So I started this program. It was a 12-week program, and I was really getting real clear on, it was a lot of law of attraction stuff too. But you can't just sit around and say, I'm going to think myself successful, or I'm just going to, you have to do some work too. And so there was a lot of process in it. And I put myself through the system, through the program, and I dove in 100%. And I started seeing some transitions, and I made the year about manifesting. So I started through this program. There were a few things that I wanted to manifest. One was, at the time I was living with a really good friend of mine. We were sharing space. I was trying to, cut down on costs so I could continue to build my business and grow in that way. But I wanted to get back to having my own place. So my daughters and they're getting older. I wanted the time so we could just, I wanted to be able to play my drum set whenever I want to and all that good stuff. So, because, the important things in life.
That's right.
So that was one thing. Another thing is I set a goal for a certain amount of income that I wanted to manifest for myself every month. Mm. I also set a goal for a couple of experiences, and one of them was something that Mind Valley puts on called A-Fest. And it's like a 5-day thing that's like, it's like personal development and a bunch of parties. So it's just like the best of both worlds for me, because if there are two things I love, it's like to go out dancing, music, having fun, and personal development. I love those two things very much.
That's why we groove.
Right. That groove is all that and a bag of chips. Like, it's all that and more. So I thought, I want to go to A-Fest. It might not be this year, but I'm going to go to one of those, and I'm going to meet the guy who runs Mind Valley, and you see him on all the videos. His name is Vishen Lakhiani, and I was very inspired by him. I'm going to meet him one day, and I'm going to do, so I started visualizing this stuff and making plans and all that. Well, then not long after that, I see a video for something. It was their first year they were going to do it. It was called Mind Valley University. And I watched the video, and I literally wept when I saw it. And I made my kids, I said, girls, come here. You have to see this. And it was about reinventing the college experience. Now, I have some issues with the way that the education system is, just the education system in general in America.
That's a whole nother interview. We could dive right into that.
Whole other show, so we won't even go there. I loved the intent, and I loved the passion that was behind it, and the concept in general. It was about what if we invited anyone of any age every year, instead of like this 4-year thing and you go for this amount of time. What if for 1 month every year we went to a different city on a different part of the planet and experienced a new culture together, but also we're there as a group of people, like-minded tribe, to learn together and grow together. There would be workshops from some of the best speakers in the world, and you get an opportunity to perform workshops with the other people in collaborations and all these things, people from all over the world. So I'm showing this to my daughters, and I'm like, this would be amazing. And I was just like, I have to go to one of these. And my first thought was, one of these days I'm going to go to this. Well, come spring of that year, I had already manifested that exact amount of money per month that I was shooting for. It really kind of blew my mind. I mean, I was sure it was going to happen, but yet when it did, it was like, what? Oh my gosh, that worked. Like, okay, let's keep going. It was a validation that I needed, that I was on the right track. So then it made me a little bolder, and I was like, what if now that I'm bringing in this amount of money that I, wasn't bringing in before, what if I made it possible for me to go to this Mindvalley University thing? I was thinking the 5-day AFest thing would be amazing, but what if I just up the ante here to a month-long learning experience in Barcelona, Spain? Now, the only time I've ever been out of the country was a couple years ago when I went to Haiti to do Groove at an orphanage, and it was amazing, and it lit me on fire to want to travel. And I remember thinking, if there was ever a time, it was a lot of money, and it was still going to be a stretch for me to do this. But I thought, I can, I have a choice. I can say yes or I can say no. But if I say no to this, then what am I saying yes to? Because I felt compelled when I saw it. I told you I wept, and I just was drawn to it, and all these things that I kept saying I wanted to do. And I thought I didn't have a lot happening for that month. I didn't have a lot scheduled. So it was like, I'm kind of invisible here in this little town that I live in. Nobody sees me right now. I mean, I didn't have a lot on my calendar. I need to get out of here and get out into the world, because I really, truly believe that what I have to give and the way in which I give it, there are people out there doing similar things as me. Right. But it's the combination of things that I give and in my experiences and the way in which I give it. I think my two things that make me very unique are the energy that I bring and the love that I put into it. Mm-hmm. And because I have my own, I bring my story in what I believe is a powerful and vulnerable way that makes it safe for other people. So those are really powerful things that help me do what I do. And I felt like I can't just, I have to stop being small. And I have to really get this out there in a bigger, more powerful way. And what better way to expand my network of people outside of the Northern Virginia area and make it really a global network.
Yep.
And it wasn't just like, oh, I want to go to Spain. I felt like I was being called to this for many reasons. And so I thought, where there's a will, there's a way. I know if I want to say yes to this, I can make it happen, and everything will work out fine. The thing that was getting me was, oh, you're going to spend a lot of money on this. And then, then what happens? Because that money will be gone. And I had to remind myself, yes, but you are perfectly capable of making more money. You're already doing it.
Yeah.
It's like we think, oh my gosh, that money, it's gone.
Yeah.
But we can make more. And I had to show myself, that was another part of it. I had to show myself that you need to show yourself in the universe that you believe in your capability of creating more opportunity and creating more money for you so you can pay your bills and do this. And so I just said yes to it. And I thought, I have never, whenever I've really felt compelled to do something, it always works out. So I'm going to trust and know that, anything that's worth doing is usually going to scare the crap out of you. At least, and the more it scares you, probably the more you need to do it.
Yeah.
And so I just said yes to it, and everything kind of fell into place. And I cannot imagine not having gone now. the people that I met and connected with and the collaborations that have already taken place, and that was only 6 months ago, I cannot imagine not having gone. And the friendships and connections that were made, aside from just getting able to be in another country, and we created all these dance experiences in the plazas and on the streets of Barcelona that not only were so great for me and the other people who experienced it, and they saw what Groove was about, and they're like, I love this, but total strangers that were just walking by and joined us, and you could see it and feel it, what it was doing for them. Yeah. So, and I'm sure that there are some of those experiences, the total strangers that jumped in with us and danced, and what I saw, they're not going to forget that. We don't even know what that might have done for them. Yeah. So all this ripple effect that, and even my girls, seeing me, when I spoke to them about it, I said, I am thinking of doing something that would have me gone from you for a month. We've never been away from each other that long, but they've seen me in the struggle. They've seen me, because I have a really big why as far as my purpose for doing what I do, and they've never seen me give up on it. And there have been days when, financially it's been hard or emotionally it's been hard, but the why is what gets me out of bed on days when I don't think I can. And so when I approached them about it, they both did not hesitate. They were like, Mom, you got to do this. You got to do this. And you deserve to do something like this. And I thought, well, all I needed was your blessing. Anybody else? I don't need a yes from anybody but you two. And so that's all I needed. And I went. And there were days during that time when it was hard. It was hard being away from my daughters. One of them was struggling with some things. We FaceTimed a lot, but I started missing them. I was stayed in the house with 14 people, and I was feeling a lot of their stuff. I'm super sensitive to other people's energy. So I got blindsided a few times and had to catch my bearings. I'd just never been in an experience like that. I never went to college. So I got like this taste of the college life, living in a dorm, so to speak, with 14 people, and half of them were in their 20s, and it was just like, this is wild and it's so wacky. And sometimes I don't even know what to do. Like, I'm completely thrown off my game and my energy, and I was emotional some days. But it was an incredible experience that I needed to experience. It wasn't completely perfect all the time, and there were some painful moments, but I cannot imagine not having gone, and I'm so happy I did. And it was one more affirmation for me that when you feel compelled to do something, there's a way.
Get out.
You just, our resistance is what says no to us every single time. And we will say, I don't have the money. But if it's something we know we really want and really need to grow or whatever, to take to up level in any kind of way, we'll find a way.
And isn't it interesting that that's exactly what this goes back to earlier in our conversation, that's the example of what keeps us small.
Yes.
But when we're brave enough to show up, you already talked about the ripple effect of just showing up to dance in the parks or out in the public, in the streets, and how that impacted strangers in ways that you can never know, ever. But that's the magic. That is the magic when we show up for ourselves, when we show up for life, when we show up taking care of our bodies, because that is the vessel that allows us to do all of this. That's the magic right there. It is scary.
It is.
Showing up is like full exposure. Here I am. That's what it feels like.
Right.
Here I am, even though, and that's what our brain does. But the reality is that most people don't even notice.
Right. It's like, it's like one of our Groove truths. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. No one's really looking at you. We think everybody, if we let ourselves dance, that everyone's looking at us and they're all going to go home and Facebook post about how we were dancing or think about it all.
We were. Yeah, exactly. How stupid that was.
Right. Nobody knows. And if they do, then it's their problem. That's something we say in Groove all the time.
Yeah.
And so all the Groove truths and what Groove gave me is stuff that everyone can take into their daily living practices. And that is one of them that's huge for me, because I worried a lot before the divorce happened. And I was trying to figure out, I knew that I could no longer be in the marriage. And as I said, you came along and gave me this opportunity to do this training. And I wanted to say no to it, but you made it impossible for me to say no. And when I did, you saw me, like, I was very raw the whole weekend in training. I was weeping and crying all the time. I was in a very fragile state in my life. And when it came time for me to do my,
Groove, your little practice.
Yeah, we all had to do our little, a song or two and lead everybody. And I forgot the moves. I was terrified. I remember going back and journaling about it. And I said, that was awful. And I wanted to cry because I just was so embarrassed. It was awful. And I said, but I did it. And I've been such an emotional mess, but I did it. And I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to do it again. And every time it's going to get better. And it has.
Yeah.
Thank you. I feel comfortable doing it now. Mm-hmm. It's like riding a bike, but that first time especially was terrifying for me. But the victory was in that first time.
And that's the life lesson right there.
Yes.
It does not matter if it's dance, if it's singing, if it's getting up to speak, whatever it may be. Wearing something a little bit flashier than you normally do because, maybe you live in an ultra conservative area like I do, or whatever the case may be. Whatever the case may be, that's the life lesson.
Yeah, if it scares the crap out of you, then it's worth doing.
Yep.
It's worth doing. No matter what the
love.
Yeah.
Taking a trip, going overseas, taking a trip by yourself.
Uh-huh.
There are all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And yeah. So let's talk about your little video venture that you've done. You've created a video. Is it still being edited and all of that, or is it about ready to be put out there?
It's about ready. Our goal is to have it out by the end of this month, because January is National Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And so we wanted to try to get it out at least in January. It's a piece. I do spoken word poetry, and I wrote a piece about 4 years ago it's the story. It's actually a collaboration of true stories of young girls who I know personally. It's not one person's story. It's many girls' stories, but they're actual stories put together of how a girl can easily be lured in to something like sex trafficking, and how difficult it is for them to leave that life and why. It kind of highlights the shame that a person may go through once they've gotten lured into that life, and they don't believe that they're a victim. They're made to believe that they chose that when they didn't. They didn't have a choice, even if they make it look like they did. And just kind of calling out society in the fact that one thing that I just kind of runs through my mind is, because I'm always thinking about prevention. If we can stop this from happening in the first place. And the best way I know to do that is to empower our young people so that they know who they are.
And don't you think it's also about empowering our young men?
Yes, absolutely.
It's the girls, it's the boys too.
Yes,
they're boys, and helping them to feel and to understand what it means to show up for them and for other people, to not use other people, because I think they get blamed.
They do.
And I don't think it's always them.
No, because you know what? There's a society. There are things like, it's all over the media, the music, the magazines we read, all this stuff that says to young men, you're not enough. And if you want to be a man, then you got to act this way. You got to treat women this way. And oh my gosh, heaven forbid you should be 18 years old and never slept with a girl. Exactly. Then you got to go pick one and go get laid right now because you're not a man. When, really what they're not hearing is you're a man's role. One of many is to be a caretaker of the world. That means you protect.
Boom.
That means you take care.
Boom.
Yes. So they're buying into that just as much as young girls are buying into your body is where your worth lies.
Yeah.
That's a bad combination to have.
It's lethal, and we're seeing the results of it.
Yes, absolutely. And so they need to be hearing different things about why they're here and what their roles are, what their true roles are.
And yes, because that's what creates healthy relationships, not divorce rates that are through the roof, or this attitude of, oh, we can just divorce, we can just break up, we can just get together and still, and those things happen. I'm not saying that it makes people bad people, but it makes the struggle that much harder.
Absolutely. I mean, even like, sometimes people have to make a choice, but if I had to choose, you can't, I mean, the fact that my family as a unit crumbled did no one any good. I mean, and so nobody wants to see that. It's been very destructive to our society. What's happening just with, and not just young men and young girls, even parents.
Yes.
We can get lost in, go through those midlife crises and go through divorce and things like that. We find ourselves in pain over things that happen in life. And we start to lose our identities and our kids and our families and things like that. And next thing we wake up and who am I? And next thing you know, you're numbing yourself with Prozac or wine or shopping or whatever. And I'm not judging anybody for any of that because I've done it. I mean, I've done it in certain ways, numbed myself with things. But at the end of the day, if the parents aren't doing well and numbing themselves and shutting down and resisting and not knowing they're enough, then how are we going to be able to help our kids know they're enough? So we all need to be reminded of what our roles are. But it really starts with our young men and women because they're growing into young adults. And the earlier that you can help them understand who they are, the better.
Yeah.
It's just like they say, they target 12 and 13-year-olds because the earlier you can get them, the more you can keep their minds stuck in a place that this is who I am now. Yeah. So, but I wrote the piece to spread awareness. And so I had a friend, this also happened at the beginning of last year. We were talking, she's a filmmaker. She was one of my clients and we later in the year decided, I said, I've always wanted to make some sort of video out of it. And I was just going to do it on my phone and be done with it. And she's like, no, let's do this right. So we've been working on it and we got some actors and some other people to get involved. And it's only going to be about a 10 to 15 minute film. But
that's all it takes to get a powerful message across. We don't have attention spans for
exactly.
That's all you need to hit someone in the heart and make them go, how can I help?
Yeah. And that's the hope that it's not pretty. It's a little graphic. I tried to make it so it wasn't, it's not over the top, but it's not pretty. And but it does drive the point home because we're in a society now. We don't pay attention to each other. We don't know our neighbors. And there are a lot of good people out there who would, if they knew what was happening, would be willing to reach out more. Meanwhile, there are a lot of predators out there who are more than willing to spend way more time than what the good people out there are spending on our kids.
Yes.
But they're doing it for their harm.
Yes.
And so that's the thing that was one point I really wanted to get across in this film was that we really have to take a little more responsibility here and start reaching out to our kids and families so that we can give them the strength and the courage and the empowerment to keep this from happening in the first place.
Let's make ourselves healthy so we can make our kids healthy.
Absolutely.
On all fronts.
Absolutely. Yeah.
On all fronts. Which is why you and I work so well collaborating, because my focus is more, because I feel compelled to go the other way to hit the moms and dads, because as they get healthy, then that ripples down to their kids. Moms have more impact on the health in their household than anyone else. The future health of your kids stems from you. Their mental health, their physical health, their spiritual health comes from their mom. That's the number one influencer. And that's where you and I we have always really partnered well and just had this wonderful tandem in being able to see that. And I'm re-inspired to do a mother-daughter. We've wanted to do that. I'm re-inspired as we're talking. I'm like, okay, we need to.
Yeah.
We need to.
I think that would be powerful. And you said something, you just made me think, yes, we do. But even when moms are struggling, because again, we're wounded healers. So even when we're hurting, it doesn't mean we have to hide all of that from our kids. I think sometimes we forget that we need to show our kids that we're human. Yeah. And it doesn't mean they have to know every little thing that's going on in our lives or that they become our counselors either. But there are times when my kids have seen me cry and hear my frustrations and things. And it was funny because my daughter, I was saying something to her today. She was talking about a struggle she was having with somebody. And I said, you're really, for your age, you are way more ahead of the game than I was at your age. Like, I had no clue the understanding of human beings that you do at your age. And she said, because we have many conversations and we've had conversations about my struggles with other people. And she said, well, Mom, the only reason I know that is because you've been telling me all this stuff in my life. And I went,
Yep.
Okay, well, so I guess that didn't just happen. But even in my struggle and my failures, and I've had many, not knowing how to run a business and all that stuff, there are things I've shared and I've told them sometimes, I'm scared to death right now. I don't know what to do, but I will figure it out. And they know that I've gone into things being afraid or being sad or all these things. So we don't have to hide those things from our kids. I think it's helpful if we share them, as long as we listen to our gut and know what to share and what to save for your besties.
Because that is life. You are not going to protect your kids from pain.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that's what parents try to do, is to shelter themselves, like, ooh, I don't feel anything, and to shelter their kids from it, rather than giving them the skills that they need in this life to be able to deal with it. Stress would go down incredibly. Just all these issues that we have, I think, are a result of hiding and masking and sheltering and pretending.
Word. Exactly. You just nailed it. And that's why you and I do the kind of work that we do.
Yep. So we could go on for all day, because I told you I love Karen, and it's like we pick right back up and we just So tell me, what is next for Karen Davis King and the Human Professional life, business? What's ahead? What's next?
Well, this year is really about stepping up my courage game, because it would be easy for me to go, okay, whoo, last year was awesome. I manifested this and this, and, pretty much the main...
The magic carpet ride now.
Right. Like, oh, okay, I got this figured out. No, I have to still keep doing that work and still making plans and all that. And it is scary knowing that, okay, it's another up level is coming. I just added Reiki healing I just finished a couple of trainings. So I just added that to my services, which I think fits in beautifully with all the other stuff I'm doing. Yeah. And, having to do 28 different things. And then
not the same way.
Yeah.
I get it.
So this year is really about building on my courage and the way I want to show up authentically. And it really comes down to more vulnerability, more transparency, because yes, I can be very transparent, very vulnerable, even in groups, even in my writing, but there are little places where I still hide from people and want to be small or just hide. And I'm, as I said, I'm starting this. It's a pretty intensive training. It's going to be the whole year through Layla Martin, who is just a brilliant coach with sexuality, love, and relationships. So I'm taking her program for a certification as a coach. And because I have my own history with sexual trauma, I still have things that need to be healed or layers that need to be dealt with. The first few months, we're just starting to dive in, is taking myself through the process, and then you build on your coaching skills and then business skills. But that is scary for me. I've done a lot of healing work, but this feels like a whole other level.
Yeah.
It's pretty deep and intense. So I'm looking forward to all the ways. Yeah, it's going to probably knock me around a little bit, but I'm ready for it. I see the wave coming, and I'm like, all right, I'm not going to fight you, wave. I'm going to body surf you in on the shore, and I'm going to have so much more to give my clients. Yeah. And because what we were talking about with, young people, and even, any age really, not feeling like they're enough, how those things play into our relationships and our sexuality are huge. We're very confused about our sexuality, and we've taken things about our sexuality that are beautiful and perverted them, and vice versa in our culture. Yep. And I'm just thinking, if we all, or even the majority of people, had healthier relationships and sexual relationships with ourselves and with our soulmates, what this world would look like. So really it's about continuing to grow. I've got some other things planned for later in the year as things start to transpire through this training. But I'm just really kind of trying to stay open, and adding this service, I think, is going to be incredibly, incredibly powerful. That and the Reiki healing are just going to be absolutely incredible and transformational for women and young girls, which is really the genre of people that I've always been focused on working with. But I would like to see more being addressed towards young men, empowering young men, because I think we are missing that piece. It's almost cool sometimes to be a female victim. I don't want that to sound wrong. It's like society has sort of made it like, let's beat up the men, and we'll be over here. And I think that men need to know how powerful they can be with their in their vulnerability.
Yeah. Well, we're hardwired differently. Men and women are built differently. That's how we were created. And to deny, it's been the other way for a long time. Women have been shamed.
Yes.
That's not a reason for us to have pushed men down and shame them. And that's what we have been doing for the last, at least my whole life. Think about the TV shows and the things that are out there that are belittling men.
Yeah.
That doesn't do us any good either.
No.
And so I agree. We need to come to this middle ground of men, women, boys, girls, all of them coming into this balance and acceptance of our strengths as women, their strengths as men, and how to grow each other up as strong and powerful men and women in our own rights.
Absolutely.
In those energies, because we all have both energies.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Yes. So where can we find you?
I can be found on Facebook. If you look up the Professional Human on Facebook, you can find me there. Also, my website is, what is it? It's Professional Human. It's a Strikingly website. So if you look up professionalhuman.strikingly.com. Let's see. And then my blog is also The Professional Human. So those can all be, found online.
The Professional Human.
Yeah, pretty much The Professional Human.
Awesome. And all the links are going to be in the show notes. So we'll get
Perfect.
make those available for people too. Well, Karen, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing you. And, when your video comes out, please share it because I want that spread too.
So we made a Facebook page for it. It's called $10 Girl Short Film. That's the name of the film. So if you can find that on Facebook too, and we'll be announcing premiere. Okay.
Shoot. Okay. So $10 Girl on Facebook, or $10, is that right? $10 Girl?
Yeah, short film. $10 Girl Short Film.
Okay, on Facebook. So that's where we can find that. And Karen, thank you once again for your time. It's been a delight to spend time with you. We don't get enough of that. We live halfway across the United States for our listeners. So we just don't get to see each other that much anymore. And well, we know how life goes. Yeah. But thank you for joining us today on Living from the Inside Out. And I look forward to meeting you next week again. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you for joining us at Living from the Inside Out. Listen every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. To connect with Holly, just go to www.globalvoiceradio.com. Global Voice Radio is where your voice and your message is heard.